Welcome back to our YouTube channel with another kindness story. Asterisk, that was how the video intro had been recorded earlier that morning, bright, cheerful, and full of the playful energy that 10-year-old Mira was known for. She and her mother ran a small kindness-themed channel where they shared uplifting stories and simple ways kids could make the world better. They never imagined they would soon live through a story that would become the most unbelievable episode they would ever post. Asterisk. The day had begun with excitement. Mira loved flying ever since her late father had taught her how planes worked using the flight simulator in their living room. She knew more about cockpits and emergency systems than most adults, but to her, it wasn't extraordinary. It was simply what she loved. As she settled into her seat near the middle of the aircraft, she stared eagerly out the window, humming the little theme song of their YouTube channel. Asterisk, the plane ascended smoothly at first, lifting through fluffy white layers of cloud. Mira had her small notebook open on her lap, doodling an idea for their next video, 10 Unexpected Ways Kids Can Be Kind Today. She loved making lists like that, little reminders that kindness wasn't always grand. Sometimes it was as simple as holding a door or comforting a friend. Asterisk. But halfway through the flight, something changed. Asterisk. At first, it was subtle, a slight tremor, a shift in engine pitch. Mira looked up. Adults rarely notice tiny things like that, but she did. Then the plane jolted, sharply enough to knock a cup of orange juice off a nearby tray. Passengers gasped. Flight attendants steadied themselves, trying to smile through concern. Asterisk, the overhead lights flickered, then dimmed. A strange, grinding sound shuddered through the plane. Mira tensed, recognizing the vibration immediately. Not turbulence, not wind, something mechanical. Asterisk, her mother grabbed her hand. Sweetheart, it's okay. It's just rough air. Asterisk, but Mira wasn't convinced. She had logged hundreds of hours in simulation with her father. She knew what turbulence felt like. This wasn't it. Then the loudspeaker crackled. The captain's voice, strained and trembling, filled the cabin. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a critical malfunction. One moment. Please brace for possible impact. Asterisk, a collective gasp rippled across the cabin. A baby began to cry. A man shouted a prayer. Mira's heart pounded, her breath quickening, but she wasn't thinking about fear. She was thinking about the diagrams her father used to draw flowcharts of emergency fail-safes and manual overrides hidden deep inside the cockpit. Asterisk. Suddenly the plane lurched downward sharp. Fast, undeniable. Trays and bags tumbled. People screamed. An oxygen mask popped loose above someone's head. The aircraft nosedived so suddenly that Mira's stomach flipped. Asterisk, the captain's voice returned, barely audible over alarms echoing in the cabin. Asterisk, we have approximately 10 seconds before full system unresponsiveness. 10 seconds. The word slammed into Mira like a shockwave. 10 seconds wasn't enough time for anything, except it might be enough for her. She unbuckled her seatbelt. Asterisk, her mother grabbed her arm. Mira, stay seated. I can help, Mira said, her voice shaking but unwavering. You can't. Stay here. Asterisk, but Mira had already slipped free. She darted into the aisle, fighting against the downward tilt of the plane. The floor felt like it was sliding away beneath her. People clung to armrests, some screaming, some frozen, some too shocked to notice the small girl pushing past. Asterisk, a flight attendant reached out to block her. Sweetheart, you need to sit. Asterisk, a stabilizer override is stuck. Mira blurted. You need manual bypass. Asterisk, the attendant stared at her, stunned. That wasn't something a child should know, certainly not the exact technical phrase for the most common failure point in a descending aircraft. Asterisk, before anyone could stop her. The plane dropped again faster. The nose dipped dangerously toward the ocean glittering far, far below. The flight attendant lost balance and stumbled. Mira pressed forward. The cockpit door was already ajar, likely from the violent shaking. She slipped inside. The scene looked like something from her father's simulator, only far more terrifying. Warning lights flashed vicious red. The pilots wrestled with a yoke that wouldn't respond. Panels beeped erratically. The first officer's forehead was beaded with sweat. What are you doing in here? The captain shouted. We have 8 seconds, Mira said, her voice trembling but clear. I can reach the manual bypass. The pilots froze, not because they believed her, but because something in her tone cut through the panic. Children didn't talk like that. Children didn't know what a bypass panel was. But Mira did. And the plane was still falling. She took a step forward. The cockpit felt like stepping into the eye of a storm. Chaos swirled everywhere, but the space itself held a strange, focused quiet. Red emergency lights pulsed across the room like frantic heartbeats. Warning tones beeped in uneven, panicked rhythms. The entire cabin rattled violently. Yet Mira stood still, her small frame braced against the trembling floor, her hands gripping the door frame. The captain blinked at her in shock. The first officer glanced over his shoulder, eyes wide with disbelief, hands still fighting fruitlessly with the unresponsive controls. How did she? The first officer began. I told you. Mira shouted over the alarms. The stabilizer override is stuck. You have to bypass it manually. There's a lever under the co-pilot's panel. I can reach it. You can't. Her words tumbled out so fast they almost collided with each other. But they made sense. Too much sense. The captain swallowed hard, his eyes flicking from the child to the failing instruments. The plane jerked again, banking sharply. Papers flew. A coffee mug crashed to the floor and shattered into fragments. The captain and first officer both grabbed for support to stop themselves from being thrown sideways as the aircraft dipped even lower. Captain? We're losing vertical control, the first officer said, voice raw with fear. Throttle's not responding. Elevators are locked. The captain knew. Of course he knew. He had been trying everything he could for the last horrific 30 seconds. But the plane didn't care. It was sinking nose first, sickeningly fast toward a stretch of open ocean that glittered like a cruel mirror. He looked at Mira again. Kid, listen to me, he said with a tight voice. This is a very dangerous situation. I can't have you in here. You don't have time. Mira screamed. For a moment, everyone froze. Even the alarms felt like they hesitated. Her voice wasn't scared. It wasn't confused. It held a sharp certainty that sliced through every layer of panic in the room. The first officer's eyes narrowed. Sir, she said, the manual bypass under the co-pilot console. His fingers flew across the remaining responsive switches. That's exactly where the lever is on this model. The captain stared at Mira as if seeing her for the first time, not as a frightened child, but as someone who understood something critical. How do you know that? He asked, breathless. My dad taught me, she said quietly, tears beginning to fill her eyes. On flight simulators, real ones. He worked with them before he passed. A beat, then another. Outside the window, the ocean surface rushed closer. The horizon tilted aggressively. They were seconds away from losing all control. The captain made a decision. A desperate, improbable, unbelievable decision. He unbuckled. Show me, he said. Mira didn't waste a moment. She scampered to the right side of the cockpit, sliding under the co-pilot's control panel. Her tiny hands reached deep into the narrow space that no adult arm could fit into. She felt for the metal bracket, the latch. The recessed groove, just like the diagrams her father had printed for her when she begged to learn the real plane stuff. Asterisk, the first officer instantly recognized the movement. She knows it, he murmured. Asterisk, I think she really knows it. Asterisk, 30 degrees nose down, the captain warned, gripping the yoke even though it resisted him like a stubborn bull. Hurry! Asterisk Mira's fingers brushed against the cold metal lever. Her heart thumped wildly as the plane groaned loudly around her, metal complaining under stress. She hooked her fingers around the small, handle smaller than a pen, and yanked with all the strength her 10-year-old arms had. Nothing. She gritted her teeth, repositioned her grip, and pulled again. Asterisk, the plane vibrated so violently that she almost lost hold of the lever. But she didn't stop. She thought of her father, how he smiled when she aced one of his simulated emergency drills. How he'd tell her, a pilot is calm in chaos. Mira, that's their superpower. She held her breath and pulled one more time with every ounce of force she had. Clunk. Metallic click echoed through the panel. Asterisk, the first officer's head snapped up. Captain, the elevator system just responded. Asterisk, the yoke loosened under the captain's hands only slightly, but enough. Enough to mean hope. Asterisk Mira scrambled out from the panel, panting. It's not done, she said quickly. You have to throttle back to 40% or the engines will overcompensate. Asterisk, the captain immediately adjusted the throttle. The plane's descent slowed, but only from catastrophic to barely survivable. Asterisk, get her a seatbelt. The first officer barked. Asterisk Mira jumped into the co-pilot's chair. Her feet didn't reach the floor, but her hands flew to the auxiliary controls, like she'd been waiting her whole life to touch them. Asterisk, the captain shot her a look. You follow my lead. Understand? Asterisk, yes, sir. Asterisk, good. Let's save this airplane. Asterisk, the plane groaned again, but for the first time since the nightmare began, it wasn't falling as fast. Asterisk, for the first time, hope flickered. The cockpit felt tighter with every second that passed, as though the air itself had begun to close in around them. Even with the manual bypass engaged, the aircraft was still fighting back, shuddering, bucking, dropping in uneven jolts. But now, unlike before, the pilots could feel some response from the controls. A tiny miracle, born from a single child's hands. Asterisk Mira. The captain said, keeping his voice steady even as the plane dipped again. I need you to hold this auxiliary stabilizer knob right here. Keep it centered. If it drifts even a little, we'll lose pitch control again. Asterisk Mira slid her hand onto the small silver knob, her fingers trembling. Centered. I can do that. Asterisk, the first officer fired off numbers, altitude readings, and warnings as fast as the instruments could spit them out. We're still descending at an unsafe rate. 2,000 feet per minute and climbing no, dropping. Engines are showing oscillation. Captain, we're going to lose both turbines if we don't stabilize airflow. Asterisk, the captain gritted his teeth. Turbulence at this angle could flame us out. We need level flight, even if only for a few seconds. Asterisk outside, the ocean swelled closer, its waves no longer a distant shimmer but a textured, rippled pattern like the world's largest, cruelest landing pad. Sunlight flashed against the surface, blinding white in the cockpit windows. Asterisk Mira forced her eyes not to drift toward it. If she stared at the water rushing up to swallow them, she would panic, and if she panicked, she'd shake. And if she shook, the knob would slip even a fraction. The plane pitched hard left. Hold it steady. The first officer yelled, Asterisk, I'm trying. Mira cried, her arm muscles burning as she fought against the trembling controls. The cockpit shook again once. Twice, like the sky itself was rattling the aircraft, testing their grip on survival. Captain, elevators are responding intermittently, the first officer said. We need more stability. Then we make our own. The captain shot Mira a quick glance. On my mark, reduce the stabilizer tension by 1 notch. Mira's throat tightened. 1 notch? Exactly 1. She swallowed hard. Okay. The captain steadied the yoke, forcing the nose upward through brute. Strength alone. It fought him viciously, but he didn't let go. Sweat streamed down his forehead. 3, 2, 1 now. Mira turned the stabilizer knob the tiniest bit, maybe a millimeter, just as she'd practiced on her father's simulator long ago. The plane jerked, dipped, then miraculously tilted upward. The first officer gasped. Captain! Rate of descent is decreasing. Not enough. The captain muttered through clenched teeth. The cockpit alarm shrieked a new warning, one even more terrifying than the rest. Terrain. Pull up. Terrain. Pull up. Her heart hammered. She kept the knob exactly centered. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Come on, the captain whispered to the plane, as though begging an old stubborn animal to rise. Come on. The aircraft shook with another violent jolt. The floor vibrated beneath Mira's shoes. The yoke trembled, like a living thing trying to rip itself free of the captain's hands. Throttle 40%, Mira shouted. Not a percent more. The captain adjusted it instinctively. Somehow he trusted her, this small girl, who had stepped into his cockpit with fire in her eyes. The first officer pointed to the altimeter. 1,000 feet. The ocean was close enough now that Mira could make out distinct waves, each crest of foam. She froze for a second, her breath hitched. It's so close. I don't want to die. I don't want Mom to die. Her hands trembled. No, she whispered. Not now. She tightened her grip on the stabilizer knob until her knuckles turned white. The captain shouted, Prepare to pull up on my command. The plane dipped sharply again, its belly nearly slicing the tops of the waves. Spray from the ocean misted the windows. The first officer braced himself. 600 feet. Captain, we're out of time. Mira? The captain yelled. On my signal, notch the stabilizer 1 more time. Do not move until I say. She nodded, jaw clenched, tears streaking her cheeks. 3, 2, the alarm screamed. Double quotes 1. Now. Mira turned the knob again barely. Just barely. The captain yanked the yoke back with every ounce of strength in his body. For a split second, the plane hovered on the edge between flying and falling, between life and the cold, merciless ocean. The nose rose, slowly, agonizingly. The engines caught airflow, stabilizing their sputtering rhythm. The descent flatlined, then the aircraft leveled out. So close to the ocean that the passengers could see their reflections in the water. So close that the captain could feel the spray against the underside of the fuselage. So close that another second would have ended all of them. But they weren't falling anymore. They were flying. Silence washed through the cockpit, not because the alarm stopped, but because hope returned so suddenly it stole everyone's breath. The first officer wiped his eyes. Captain, she saved us. We would have lost the aircraft without her. The captain looked at Mira, small, shaking, cheeks wet with tears, but eyes fierce and brave. No, he said softly. She's not done saving us yet. They were alive, but far from safe. The hardest part was still ahead. The cockpit was still filled with alarms, blinking lights, and warnings threatening to rise again at any moment, but the atmosphere had shifted. They were no longer plummeting toward the ocean. They were flying again, level and steady enough to breathe. The captain, the first officer, and Mira all sat frozen for several seconds, as if afraid to move and accidentally break the fragile miracle holding them in the sky. Then the captain exhaled a shaky breath. All right, we're alive, but we're not out of danger. He glanced at the instrument panel. We have partial elevator control, throttles are unstable, and we're losing fuel faster than expected. We need to land soon. Nearest runway is over 70 miles out, the first officer said, scanning the navigation. With our current issues, we might not make it. Mira tightened her grip on the stabilizer knob. It had become her lifeline, her one job, her one anchor in the chaos. There has to be something we can do. The captain looked at her in awe mixed with disbelief. You've already done enough for 10 adults, Mira. You don't need to do anything else. But she shook her head. I'm not stopping until we're all safe. For a moment, the captain stared at her, this small girl, sitting in a co-pilot seat much too large for her, her legs not even reaching the floor, but her heart towering above everything in the room. He nodded. Then let's finish this together. The first officer was already flipping through emergency manuals, voice rapid and tense. Captain, if we keep the stabilizers manually centered and throttle low, we might maintain altitude long enough to reach the coastal runway. Might, the captain echoed. That's the best word we've heard all day. The plane continued. Forward, trembling but steady enough to give everyone the faintest hope, Mira kept the stabilizer centered with laser focus. Her arm muscles ached, her fingers tingled, but she didn't dare loosen her grip even for a second. Her thoughts drifted to her mother sitting in the cabin, probably terrified, praying, waiting. Mira felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't had a chance to say anything, hadn't been able to tell her she loved her, hadn't been able to promise her she'd come back. But she would. She had to. As the coastline came into view ahead, the first officer announced, runway sighted. But we have a problem. Mira's stomach dropped. What problem? Without full control, landing is going to be extremely rough, the captain said grimly. We may not be able to align correctly, and if the stabilizers slip out of place during descent, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Mira looked at the knob she'd been holding. The slightest movement made the plane wobble. If she loosened her grip during landing, even for the blink of an eye, the entire aircraft could topple. I'll hold it, she said firmly, all the way down. Mira, that's a lot, the captain began. I saved us once, she said, and I'm not stopping until we're on the ground. The captain exchanged a glance with the first officer. Both men saw the resolve in her face. The same kind of determination they had seen in veteran pilots during emergencies. Okay? The captain said softly. We trust you. They began the descent. The nose tilted downward slowly. The engines hummed irregularly. The runway grew larger dark asphalt surrounded by green fields and flashing emergency vehicles waiting below. Passengers pressed their faces to the windows, unaware that their lives were in the hands of a 10-year-old girl clutching a single stabilizer knob. As the plane dipped lower, turbulence returned with furious force. The aircraft bucked violently. Mira's hand slipped a fraction. Hold it steady. The captain shouted. I've got it, she cried, gripping harder, knuckles turning white. The plane wobbled dangerously to the right. Wind shear. The first officer yelled. Compensating. The captain growled, forcing the yoke to the left. Mira bit down hard on her lip, pushing against the drift of the stabilizer. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. Her arms felt like fire. But she didn't let go. 200 feet above the runway. 150. The wheels met the ground in a bone-rattling impact. Passengers screamed. Luggage crashed from overhead bins. The plane bounced once, twice. Hold it centered. The captain roared. I am. Mira yelled, tears streaming down her face from sheer effort. The captain slammed the brakes. The engines roared against their own failing power, and then the aircraft screeched to a grinding, violent halt. Silence. The longest silence Mira had ever heard. Then the cabin erupted in cheers, sobs, screams of joy. Strangers hugged each other, cried into their hands, kissed the floor. People chanted, "Thank you, thank you," to no one and everyone. But the captain turned only to Mira. Tears shimmered in his eyes. "You saved 200 people today," he said quietly. Mira finally released the stabilizer. Her arms felt like lead. Her whole body trembled. She nodded, softly, trying not to cry. I just didn't want anyone to get hurt," she whispered. The first officer laughed through emotion. "Kid, you're a hero." When the door opened and emergency responders rushed in, Mira didn't run to the cameras or the crowd. She ran straight into her mother's arms. Her mother held her so tightly that Mira could barely breathe. "My brave girl," she whispered, through tears. "My brave, brave girl." And somewhere in the back of the aircraft, a passenger already had their phone raised and recording, saying the same words Mira herself had once used at the start of every video.